Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Disney Publishing Preview. I am Ronny Khuri, Books for Youth Senior Editor at Booklist. My pronouns are he and him. And before we begin, I will go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in a reminder email that you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. If you'd like to download them, you can open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the materials by copying the URL on this screen into your web browser. If you have any trouble, please contact us at webinars@booklistonline.com. If you are in the audience, you are in listen-only mode, but we definitely welcome any questions that you might have. So on the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. So if you have a question, if you need technical assistance, just click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all of the tech-related questions, and we can pass along all the other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Finally, Booklist offers closed captioning on all of our webinars. So to enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on that toolbar I mentioned a moment ago. From there, you can select show or hide subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting subtitle settings. All right, we have a really great event planned for you today, and we will be hearing from today's special author guests a little later in the program. And first, I will pass the mic to the Disney School and Library Marketing team, who is going to share a few upcoming titles with you all. Take it away.
Thanks, Ronny, so much. Hi, everyone. I'm Dina Sherman. I'm the School and Library Marketing Director at Disney Publishing. We have an incredible lineup of authors today, and I'm going to get us to them as quickly as possible. But we did want to, while we have you here, get you a little bit of information about some of our other upcoming books. So we're going to do a quick book buzz for you here. If we could kick off with the next slide, I'll get us started. So first up, we have the newest from award-winning and best-selling author Ryan T. Higgins. Penelope Rex is back, and so is her nemesis, Walter the Class Goldfish. Next slide, please. So Penelope has one fear, Walter. When Mrs. Noodleman tells the kids that they're going to be taking turns bringing Walter home, Penelope gets a bit carried away with her anxious imagination. But during her weekend, things get off to a rocky start, from Walter ominously licking his lips to a sleepless night where the fish's bowl appears to move closer and closer to Penelope's bed. Excuse me. But when Walter goes missing, Penelope must face her fear to find him and realizes along the way that there's more to Walter than his chomping jaws. Next slide. Okay, now I am not going to torture you by singing this song, but I suspect it will be stuck in your head for the next few days just from this slide. But I did want to share this amazing, beautiful painted picture book that is a fully illustrated set of the lyrics to Lin-Manuel Miranda's amazing song from Encanto, We Don't Talk About Bruno. The art and text is going to delight all the kids as they read along or sing along. And again, it'll be stuck in your head. And I'm really thrilled to say that we're going to be simultaneously releasing this in Spanish at the same time. Next slide. Okay, so we know that chapter book readers are voracious and can't get enough, so we have plenty to keep them busy. Stupendously Samson is the fourth book in the Horsetail Hollow chapter book series, in which the horses of Disney magically come into our world, and it's written by the best-selling author of the Never Girls series, Kiki Thorpe. Ophelia and the Fairy Field Trip, is the third book in the Disney Bibbidi Bobbidi Academy series, which reimagines the park's Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. I'm going to have trouble saying that today, as a magical academy for young fairy godmothers in training. And then we have My Bunkmate Hates Puppies, which is the first in a new chapter book series, Camp Littlevilles, which reimagines those Disney villains we love as small campers with big, maybe slightly evil dreams, and introduces readers to a lovable BFF duo that must stop them. Next slide, please. So for our nonfiction fans, we have some new readers from National Geographic. National Geographic readers all have expert vetted, age-appropriate text, amazing photographs as only National Geographic can do, and then a vocabulary tree and wrap-up activity at the back of the book. So first up, we have Forest Babies, which is a pre-1 level reader that invites the readers into the forest to meet cute baby turtles, mountain lion cubs, grizzly bears, and even a mysterious owlet. They're so cute. Goats is a sweet level 1 reader where kids will learn all about goats, from what they look like, where they live, how they grow up, and what they can eat, and hint, not tin cans. Also cute. Now, you may say when you look at the slide, one of these things is not like the others. Queen Elizabeth II maybe wasn't quite as cute as the goats for the Forest Babies, but she did have her corgis, right? So we still have cute animals here. So this is a level 3 reader where kids will get to visit castles, meet princes and princesses, attend a royal wedding, and travel the world through the story of Queen Elizabeth II of England. And now I'm going to pass it over to Maddie Hughes on my team, who's going to talk about middle grade.
Thanks, Dina. So first up, we have Kingdom Keeper's Inheritance, The Shimmer, which is the first book in a new Kingdom Keepers series about the children of the original Kingdom Keepers by beloved author Ridley Pearson. In the near future, in the Epcot of Walt Disney's imagination, 60,000 people live in a community surrounding the forward-looking Walt Disney World theme park. When a messenger carrying a secret communication coincides with both a solar eclipse and Eli Whitman's 13th birthday, a few ordinary kids are thrust into a battle to save Epcot and find their friend who has mysteriously disappeared. This standalone first book in an all-new series in the Kingdom Keepers world is perfect for both longtime fans and kids who are brand new to this fun world of reimagined Disney experiences. Next slide. So water. From the water cycle to where wastewater goes, profiles on water crises to innovative water pollution solutions, this book is jam-packed with everything kids need to know right now about Earth's most precious resource. Next slide. Despite this being a bit of a tough subject, this book delivers the information in a fun, accessible, and exciting way through loads of fun facts and staggering stats, cool sidebars, at-a-glance infographics, and of course, a bright, bold design. It also provides tons of take-action prompts and simple activities kids can do at home or in their communities, plus loads of inspiration from real-life water warriors, so kids can feel empowered to make a difference. And then next slide. How to survive in the age of dinosaurs. You've been transported back in time to the age of dinosaurs. What do you do? Test your chops and discover if you have what it takes to survive at a time when the Earth looked, well, a tad different in this ultimate survival guide to the prehistoric age. See how to fend off an angry pterosaur and learn what to do if you're caught in a stampede of enormous titanosaurs. Discover what you could eat. Spoiler alert, you better like the taste of insects, and find out which hungry creatures just might try to eat you. Next slide. Packed with tips, tricks, and helpful maps, this is the ultimate handbook for dinosaur fans who want to know what life on Earth was really like when dinos ruled. This book is the ultimate blend of humor with real science and history facts, perfect for any kid that loves their action adventure with a healthy dose of, I can't believe that's true, jaw-dropping nonfiction info. And next slide. And then we have Princess Private Eye by Evelyn Skye. The Princess Diaries meets Nancy Drew in this middle grade novel about a New York foster kid who discovers she's actually a long-lost princess and must solve the mystery behind a threat to the crown. 12-year-old Jen's son has bounced around New York's foster care system ever since her parents died in a car crash 10 years ago. Jen is savvy and self-reliant, using her keen sense of justice and her ability to go unnoticed to solve mysteries in her neighborhood. She's in the middle of solving one such mystery when her life changes forever. Suited strangers reveal that Jen is actually the long-lost princess of a small country overseas. But becoming a princess overnight isn't easy, and Jen's American ways and no-nonsense demeanor don't exactly endear her to the royal court. Before long, there are whispers that a legendary curse has been awoken by Jen's sudden appearance, and when plague-like events start to befall the small country, Jen realizes she'll have to crack her biggest case yet, catching the culprit out to dethrone her. And who knows, she just might find her place in the kingdom along the way. This charming middle grade debut by author Evelyn Skye will enchant readers with this ultimate combination of an overnight princess and detective story. So that's a preview of a couple of our upcoming middle grade titles. Now I'll pass it over to Becca Mills for YA.
Hi there. First up, we have A Whole Song and Dance, which is a heartwarming romantic comedy perfect for the theater kid in your life. And I know you have one on your mind. I was that theater kid, so this book was really great for me. Nazreen Madavi is an Iranian-American college freshman who's a musical theater triple threat, but she's living a double life. It's her first semester at NYU's prestigious Tisch School of the Arts. She's studying musical theater, and she spends her days prepping for auditions, sweating through dance classes, and belting her heart out. But on calls with her parents, she is the golden child who put her theater dreams aside to follow in their entrepreneurial footsteps as a business major. At least her whole life isn't a lie, because she is taking one single business course, except that she's kind of failing it. So she needs to bring her grade up fast if she's going to keep her parents in the dark. She grudgingly signs up for tutoring with the infuriatingly smug and annoyingly attractive Max. And as the semester rushes by, the sparks of anger that first flew between them start to turn into a very different kind of spark. And when her parents move to New York City to be closer to their little girl, her double life becomes very difficult. All right, you can go to the next slide, please. Next is When You Wish Upon a Star by Elizabeth Lynn, and it is number 14 in the New York Times best-selling Twisted Tales series. What if the Blue Fairy wasn't supposed to help Pinocchio? The Blue Fairy knows she isn't supposed to grant wishes in the small village of Pariva, but something about this one wish is different. Perhaps it's the hope she senses beneath Geppetto's loneliness, or maybe it's the fact that long ago, before she was the Blue Fairy, she was a young woman named Chiara from this very village, one with a simple wish to help others find happiness. Her sister Ilaria always teased her for this, for Ilaria had big dreams to leave their sleepy village and become a world-renowned opera singer. The two sisters were close despite their differences. While Ilaria would have given anything to have a fairy grant her wish, Chiara didn't believe in the lore for which their village was famous. 40 years later, Chiara, now the Blue Fairy, defies the rules of magic to help out an old friend, but she is discovered by the Scarlet Fairy, formerly her sister Ilaria, who, amid a decades-long grudge, holds the transgression against her sister. They decide to settle things through a good old-fashioned bet, with Pinocchio and Geppetto's fate hanging in the balance. Will the sisters find a way back to one another, or is this, like many other matters of the heart, a gamble that comes with strings? Next slide. In anticipation of the new live-action reimagining of The Little Mermaid, Against the Tide is an original novel written by New York Times bestselling author J.L. I mean, who isn't excited? Look at this gorgeous cover. After the death of Ariel's mother, the Queen of the Sea, the 7 daughters of King Triton have grown estranged at best. It's been years since Ariel's older sisters have visited home, but this year's coral moon is fast approaching, and it's a special one for Ariel. Finally 15, she will be dubbed the protector of her very own ocean territory, as is tradition at age 15, and her sisters have agreed to put aside their differences to visit for the celebration. However, they still fight the whole time that when they arrive. However, the ceremony is halted when her sister Mala is abducted. And the only clue to where she might have been taken is a hastily scribbled note on seaweed, which says, "What could have saved Mother could save me too." As Ariel and her sisters begin uncovering new secrets about their family and their kingdom, Ariel will have to face the loss of a mother she never had a chance to know and discover what it means to be both a good sister and a strong leader. And the clock is ticking, because the day of the festival, when the moon turns a true shade of coral, her sister will be lost, like her mother, forever. Next slide. Lastly, from Marvel Press, we have Aranya and Spider-Man 2099 Dark Tomorrow by Anthony Award-winning author Alex Segura. Aranya is a Spider-Girl lost in time. Miguel is a Spider-Man who's lost his way. Together, there are only hope. Anya Corazon was a normal Brooklyn teenager with normal Brooklyn problems until a few months ago, when she became Aranya, with amazing spider-like abilities from super strength and heightened agility to web slinging. Nueva York is the future of New York City, the home of the Spider-Man of 2099, and where Anya finds herself stranded, tossed across the century. And Nueva York Spider-Man, billionaire CEO Miguel O'Hara, is Aranya's only hope of getting home, back to her timeline. But Aranya and Spider-Man are about to discover that the enemies they face have dark and powerful connections to both heroes, and that this unlikely team across time will need to save much more than each other. So those are a couple of our new YA titles, and I will pass it back over to Ronny or here is our details. Disney Books and Let's Talk YA are our Twitter and Instagram handles. And we'll pass it back over so we can get an introduction for our authors.
Thanks, Becca, and thank you to Team Disney for a cool little book buzz there. We will now hear from our special author guests about their books, and we will begin with Stacey Lee, author of Winston Chu versus the Whimsies. Take it away, Stacey.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stacey Lee, coming to you from the Silicon Valley of California. My pronouns are she, her. I was actually born and raised in Los Angeles. I've been writing since I was old enough to hold a pencil. Though writing wasn't my first career, I actually spent 10 years toiling as a lawyer before finally being able to write full-time. Winston Chu versus the Whimsies is my 6th full-length novel and my first middle grade book. Many of my novels are young adult historical fiction, like The Downstairs Girl and Luck of the Titanic. So Winston Chu versus the Whimsies is about a 12-year-old kid growing up in San Francisco who saves a strange curiosity shop from being broken into. And as a reward, he is given the chance to choose one of the absurd but intriguing goodies from the shop. The first thing he touches is the first thing he'll take home. And there are all sorts of fun things to choose from, like a fuzzy ukulele, which can put anyone in a good mood. And I actually brought one of the fuzzy ukuleles that I had been giving out at my book launch last week. It's kind of out of tune, but just to show you. And giant flying piñatas. But because he is a kid who has really itchy fingers, he impulsively grabs an old broom, which comes with a free dustpan. And if that isn't bad enough, the broom and the dustpan began stealing his stuff, including his baby sister. So next slide. Here is a picture of the Whimsy shop on the corner of Jackson and Kearney in San Francisco. And if you look really carefully, you'll see that the Whimsy shop is invisible. So next slide. My son was definitely the inspiration for my hero, Winston Chu, though I'm really not supposed to tell people that, which is why I say right up front in the dedication to Bennett and Avalon, this book is not about you, mostly. So my son's button has been stuck on go since he was born, which has meant lots of adventures for me. He's touched more than his share of things he's not supposed to touch, or he's only supposed to touch with his eyes. And I've had a broken toe, a black eye, and a busted minivan to prove it. And this was all before he was 4. So I wondered, what if there were magical consequences for a good kid whose motor always ran a little too fast? As you can see, he's now 16, and his act first, think second personality actually does have some benefits, as he has no problems doing things like this. Next slide. So Winston Chu versus the Whimsies contains a classic Chinese folktale, The Cloud Weaver and the Cowherd. I did not grow up with Asian mythology. I'm a 4th generation Chinese American, 4th generation Californian, and I grew up with Western fairy tales. And my favorite was one you just saw, the Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid. When I started raising kids, I decided I would have them learn Mandarin, a language I don't speak. I only speak English and a little bit of French, thanks to high school. Their Mandarin education included learning about folktales. I came across the story of the Cloud Weaver and the Cowherd in one of my kids' books. And this is like one of the main fairy tales for Chinese kids. Imagine my surprise to learn that this fairy tale was very similar to The Little Mermaid, except the Little Mermaid is a cloud weaver, and the prince she falls in love with is a cow herd. Cloud weaver spins weather with her fingers. I think it's fascinating that the same stories are being told across the world. And no matter what culture, teenagers are still not listening to their parents. So the last thing I want to mention is how much boba was consumed in the writing of this book. I am a big fan of the whimsical and the ridiculous, and that obviously requires the consumption of a whimsical and slightly ridiculous drink. So thank you for letting me share about my book and myself.
Thank you so much, Stacey. Next up, we will hear from Crispin Boyer, author of ZEUS the Mighty, The Voyage on the Oddest Sea. Thank you for being here, Crispin.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Crispin Boyer. My pronouns are he, him. I live in Hawaii on the farm with 2 donkeys, 4 geese, about 30 chickens, 5 sheep, and probably some other animals I'm forgetting. I'm the author of ZEUS the Mighty series. It's my first fiction series, and surprise, it's about animals. So it's about a character, ZEUS, who is, the whole idea of the series is we wanted a small animal to believe that he is a giant god. And what better god to go with than Zeus, the king of the Greek deities. And so ZEUS, the hamster, lives in a pet shop in Athens, Georgia, and he lives on the tallest shelf in the pet shop that he calls Mount Olympus. And the layout of the pet shop, Mount Olympus Pet Center, kind of mimics ancient Greece. It's got the aquarium section in the middle, which is roughly the same size and shape as the Aegean Sea. It's got, various landmarks that mimic ancient Greece. And that's kind of the whole idea of the series is, it's zany. Zeus the hamster goes on all these adventures with these other Olympians who also all believe they are God. But it kind of gives a little bit of a lesson about Greek mythology and just history in general. And this is the book that I'm coming out with is called The Voyage on the Odyssey Sea. It's the 5th installment in the series. And this every book in the series covers a different Greek myth. So the first book covered Jason and the Argonauts and the quest for the Golden Fleece, which the animals call the Golden Fleas because, it's got to have some puns in there. And the second book was about the Minotaur, and each installment covers a different myth. That the Zeus and his Olympian companions, there's Ares, the god of war, who's a pug. There's Demeter, who is a grasshopper, who is Zeus's best friend, the goddess of harvest. And they all have different personalities. And Zeus, the hamster, whatever he says goes, and generally his ideas are terrible. So it's up to the other animals to try and keep him out of trouble. And generally, they end up having to rescue Zeus by the end of the story. Or they all come together and they persevere over various mythical monsters like the Minotaur or the Hydra. There's the idea is for each book to cover a different myth. And this is my first fiction series. Before this, for National Geographic, I wrote a lot of nonfiction, a lot of books about science and history and ninjas and knights. And I wrote a series called That's Gross that's about snot. And as I was writing these various nonfiction books and learning, just in general, when you write these books, you learn a lot too. I'd probably do pretty well on Jeopardy. I was also writing for video games and getting more into the narrative aspects of writing. And my editors at National Geographic said, well, now that you're getting experience writing in fiction, why don't we try this fiction series about Zeus the hamster? And so the whole idea was just to start off with these animals. They go on these adventures inspired by Greek mythology, and they actually learn about each myth from a podcast that the owner of the pet shop, her name's Artemis, that she listens to every day called Greeking Out. And that's another interesting aspect of this series is National Geographic Disney turned Greeking Out into a real podcast that was inspired by the books, and the podcast itself is very popular. So there's kind of a couple ways you can get into the series. If you just wanted to just skim it, you could listen to the Greeking Out podcast. And if you like what you hear, you can read the books, or you can read the books and you're like, I want to learn more about Greek mythology or their adventures, and I can listen to the podcast. And like I said, so, I'm really into animals. In some ways, art imitates life. I do have a slide. You can set that up. So in Hawaii, we've got a lot of chickens. We've got one chicken named Hermes, who I used as inspiration for the Hermes character in the book series. So this is an Appenzeller chicken, it's a hen. She's got a lot of personality. She's my favorite hen, which, believe it or not, you can have favorite hens. They do have a lot of personality. And she was probably the only animal I can get away with from my farm that would fit in a pet shop setting. You know, I couldn't really have a donkey in there or a cow. I suppose I could, but we'll see. We'll see. So far, Hermes is a big hit. We'll see if we can work in some of the larger animals. Probably a goose, but you know. And the thing about writing a series too is you do want to have characters that are engaging, and you don't want to have too many characters. In mythology, there are 12 Olympian gods, and originally my plan was to have 12 Olympian god characters, but it just gets to be too many characters to keep track of. So that's why we're just going to stick with the ones we have now, which is just 6. And there's Poseidon, who is the Lord of the Seas, and he's a pufferfish. And he is basically Zeus's rival. They are always butting heads because Zeus sees himself as the Lord of everything, as the ruler of the entire world, the air, the heavens, the seas, the land, and of course Poseidon's got his territory. And so those two are generally always picking fights with each other. And then you've got the Athena, who's the goddess of wisdom, who's a cat with she's a Maine Coon cat with some great ear tufts, very, very cute. And that's the one thing about the series, that the illustrations really, as you can see, really help bring it to life. And the nice thing about the illustrations is that it helps me tell this story. The illustrator is Andy Elkerton. He's done a lot of great series and for kids and for board games and everything. So this whole series takes place in this pet store that the animals, they don't pretend that they're in ancient Greece. They think they really are in ancient Greece. So say early on, they fight the Hydra monster. And as far as they know, they're battling a giant whirlpool monster. But in actuality, they're in the bathroom of the pet center and they're just fighting a stopped up toilet. So the illustrator helps me convey these somewhat complicated concepts. But yeah, so far I'm on book 5 of the series, and we're going to see, the plan was to have 7 books, and there's generally to cover all of the major plot points, all the major myths in Greek mythology, and hope you like it.
Thank you so much, Crispin. That sounds awesome. And next up, we are going to hear from Mark Oshiro, author of The Sun and the Star. Take it away, Mark.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Even though my image is very small, I am holding up the chapter teaser for The Sun and the Star, the book that I co-wrote with Rick Riordan. It is the newest Percy Jackson book set after the events of the Tower of Nero, and it is also the first Nico D'Angelo adventure, the first book where Nico is the main character of the book. And you can actually go to the first slide. What I wanted to do, we are not giving away very many plot details because there are so many spoilers that I could give you, but I will not be giving you. I wanted to give you a little bit of insight into how this book came to be, since this is sort of the first of its kind in this series and you know, in this universe. And so what you are looking at is an image from very early in 2021. It was in February of 2021 when I got the email, you know, through my agent from Rick and his editor to meet with Rick over Zoom to discuss this possible collaboration. And what you are looking at is, I think maybe a week or two after I got off the phone with Rick, I went back and reread all 15 books. I had read them all already, but I went specifically with the idea so I could submerge myself in Nico's story. These are color-coded notes that I took with my little Post-its. They have secret meanings. I'm not going to tell you what they are. But these notes were what I used to basically write my audition for the project, which is what ultimately landed me the spot to write and collaborate with Rick. You can go to the next slide. So I spent most of 2021 planning this book by revising the outline with Rick and Becky Riordan. And it was an amazing process to be able to collaborate period, but getting to see basically how the sausage is made when it comes to a Percy Jackson book was a lot of fun. It was also really hard keeping this a secret. I had to keep this a secret for most of the year, especially when Rick and his team were tweeting things like this, and I just had to sit there and not say anything. I had someone at a book festival during the summer of 2021 talk to me about how much they wish Nico got their own book, and I had to lie to their face. Sorry to my author friend who was very mad at me when this was announced and was like, you literally lied to me. And I was like, sorry. It was also during this time late in 2021 when I started to begin work on what was going to be the first draft of The Sun and the Star. One of the wonderful things about this process was that is how much freedom Rick and Disney gave me to create a book that I was proud of, that I felt seen by. It was wonderful. It was an amazing experience. You can go to the next slide. In October 2021, the book was finally announced to the world. There was so much preparation for this announcement. And despite that, I was not prepared for what happened after that. I gained nearly 10,000 followers on Twitter in less than a week. My phone overheated twice to the point where I had to just go hide it somewhere and leave it off because my phone could not handle how many notifications I was getting. And the fandom, we're going to get to them in a second, but they found their own way to sort of welcome me to the community. At the time this announcement was made, I was about 10,000 words into the first draft of this book. I had begun writing beyond the point that I got into in my audition. I wrote about somewhere around 8,000 or 9,000 words for my audition. And so I was now getting to the point where I was in new territory and it was scary. I was feeling a lot of pressure to get things right, knowing that obviously Rick is going to be reading this and editing it, and we were going to be going back and forth. And so it was such a delight that this got announced when it did, because I got to see how excited the fandom was. You can go to the next slide, my favorite thing ever. I cannot possibly communicate how funny Percy Jackson fans are. I could do an entire presentation for an hour just on the things they've said to me in the last year and a half. This is an example of one of them that just filled me with so much joy. But what a wonderful thing to experience, to have so many people cheering on a project from the sidelines as it was being created. All of these people who were so excited that Nico was finally getting his own story and that Will would be playing such a huge, prominent part of it as well. You can go to the next slide. So over the course of a year, I think the next slide should be oh, there it is. Sorry, my notes were blocking it. You're correct. Over the course of the year, Rick and I swapped this book back and forth over and over again, chatting over email, chatting through the margins in Microsoft Word to create a story that we hoped would be exciting, that would be thrilling, that would be deeply emotional. We wanted more than anything else to make sure that Nico and Will had an adventure that was worthy of the long wait, since, you know, so much of Nico's full story had been hinted at over the course of the 12 books that he was in. And yet now is the chance to finally tell so much of that. So it was also important that it felt like a natural part of the Percy Jackson universe while still getting to be something new, because it is the first Nico D'Angelo adventure book. And that's ultimately what I was so excited for about this project. I feel like this book is going to be a perfect addition to the existing canon and the existing world, but it's also going to be something Percy Jackson fans haven't quite experienced before. I can't wait to see their reactions to all the twists and turns of the story. A thing that I was talking about the other day when I was in a school visit is, you know, some of the kids were like, oh, we're going to try to guess what you wrote versus what Rick wrote. And I think you will be surprised at seeing who thought of which thing and who came up with it. You know, I'm excited for you to meet some new characters as well as to see old ones and to truly get to experience, this is my most favorite part, just how badly the fandom has predicted this book, because I have read predictions and not one fan has gotten even close to where Rick and I go in this book. I think readers are going to be very, very happy with this journey. And I'm just happy that this big secret in my life is finally going to be out there in the world. So I'm very happy May 2nd, 2023, you will finally get to read The Sun and the Star. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. That is super exciting. And next up, we are going to hear from Gretchen McNeil, the author of 3 Drops of Blood. Take it away, Gretchen.
Well, I'm afraid There are no fun slides for me. You'll just have to put up with my smiling face as I talk about myself and my books. I am absolutely delighted to be here with Booklist and everyone who's logged in from the American Library Association. Three Drops of Blood is my 12th young adult novel, and ALA and all of its pieces and parts have been huge supporters of all of my books. I've had 3 on the YALSA top 10 quick pick for reluctant readers list with 10 hashtag murder trending and hashtag no escape. And I've had 2 on the teens top 10 list with hashtag murder trending and its sequel hashtag murder funding. And way back in the day, way back in 2013, 10 was a Booklist top 10 horror fiction for youth, which is a list I don't think I've seen in a while. I would love to see it come back because I think teens especially and horror go together like peanut butter and jelly. I know those were the books that I wanted to read when I was young. And thankfully, there was a librarian in my life that handed me books that fit the things that I desperately wanted to read, because I am an old lady. And when I was a teen, there really wasn't a YA section. There was Kidlit, and there was adult, and then we had some books geared at teens. Judy Blume's Forever was a well dog-eared book in our local library. We had The Outsiders. Christopher Pike's novels were just coming out. We had series like Sweet Valley High, Babysitter's Club that were kind of young teen. But we just didn't have anything that was really geared towards teen readers, and definitely not towards a reader like me who loved Gothic and loved mysteries and loved dark, scary things that go bump in the night kind of books. And it was a librarian way back in the day that handed me a copy of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, which has been a huge influence not only on my writing. 10 is a young adult homage to that wonderful book. But Agatha Christie and her works have inspired so much of my media consumption over the years. I went from reading her novels to watching things like Hitchcock's films, which is bringing us back around to this book that we're talking about today, Three Drops of Blood. My 2022 release, Dig Two Graves, is a reimagining of a Patricia Highsmith novel that was then adapted for the screen by Alfred Hitchcock called Strangers on a Train. And we are continuing at Disney Hyperion with this Hitchcock theme. And Three Drops of Blood is an imagining of what was probably my favorite Hitchcock film for most of my life, which is Rear Window. So in this story, we have a young girl named Kate. Kate is a plus-size actress in Hollywood, which has its own set of challenges in this town. And she is on a hit Netflix show. She was cast at an open call audition that she attended with her best friend, who's actually an actress. And she gets cast as the sassy best friend in a kind of Gossip Girl type show for Netflix based on a hit book series, which is great. The show gets 1 million viewers in its first week. It all goes well until the married 38-year-old showrunner is arrested for having an affair with the 17-year-old starlet who stars on the show. Our main character, Kate, is sort of tainted by this. The starlet goes on TikTok and defends her arrested boyfriend and their love, and Netflix cancels the show. But meanwhile, Kate has taken what's called the CHESP exam, which is a test here in California that underage actors and actresses can take to opt out of high school and be considered legal 18 on set. She plans to forego her senior year of high school, not go to college altogether, and pursue an acting career full throttle, which is problematic when her agent tells her that she is essentially a pariah and she can't send her out on any auditions for at least 6 months until this upcoming trial is completed. Meanwhile, Kate's parents have gotten wind of her scheme and told her that if she's not going to school, she is going to have to pay rent to sleep in her childhood bedroom. So she has gotten a job at her best friend's father's law firm as a night file clerk in a file room known as the dungeon. And it is there, while filing boring legal documents at night, that she gets caught up in the happenings of a window across the courtyard from her, where a large and in charge businesswoman she names Ripley is having an affair with her hot assistant and runs her own business. And then she witnesses Ripley murder her assistant and her husband. But there are no bodies. Nobody believes Kate's story, except for the murderer who is now coming after her. So I had a wonderful time writing this book. It's actually one of my favorite books that I've ever written. I hope that you all enjoy reading it, and I can guarantee you that it is full of twists and turns in typical Gretchen McNeil thriller fashion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gretchen. We will keep things going with Jade Adia, author of There Goes the Neighborhood. Take it away, Jade.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jade. My pronouns are she, her. And yeah, I wrote There Goes the Neighborhood, which is coming out in March. And yeah, so, like I wrote this book to portray the human cost of gentrification and also just to provide like an accessible entry point to talk about all of these urban policy issues that are affecting teens in like a really real way across America. But, like not often discussed in the school context. So that was kind of one motivation to write this book. But, I also wanted to write it to really portray the, like the joy behind what makes communities of color cool and worth protecting in the first place. So I thought I would, take this opportunity today to show you all some pictures of where I grew up and some of the places that inspired this book, There Goes the Neighborhood. So next slide, and then the slide after that. Okay, so important disclaimer is this book is fiction. I didn't want to accidentally curse my real neighborhood with like accelerated gentrification by making it literally about, my neighborhood. And I didn't want my neighbors to come after me about it. So, it is a work of fiction, but it is very much inspired by where I grew up in South LA, a place really special to me. And all these places in the slides appear in the book secretly if you're familiar with LA. So next slide. So yeah, just like a quick pitch. So There Goes the Neighborhood is about 15-year-old Rhea and her two best friends, Zeke and Malachi. The three of them are all born and raised in South LA and have been part of this really deeply interconnected community for their whole lives. But then one day, Zeke's apartment building gets papered with eviction notices from the landlord after a really intense and pretty cruel rent increase. So the kids come together and try to figure out how to save the crew, but also how to save the neighborhood as a whole. Next slide. And so what they do is they're coming together, they're thinking like, how can we deal with this big issue? How can we stop this eviction crisis? And what they do is they think of the absolutely insane plan to use the sort of anti-Blackness and racism that they've seen underlying a lot of these conversations about the gentrification of their neighborhood to, use that racism against these gentrification. And they decide to start a fake gang to scare the gentrifiers away. And then, next slide. And like the plan works until it doesn't. And, maybe there's a murder that gets blamed on the fake gang. Maybe one of the kids becomes a suspect. Maybe all of this kind of unfolds as like the trio has to navigate the introduction of these like really cool new kids to the friend group who, when they come into the crew, it's kind of a transforming presence as like hormones and tensions kind of boil over. So yeah, that's kind of the general gist, but, the core of the book is really, despite the hook, despite the political landscape, it's really a story about like friendship and a girl's like deep-seated fear about change, like both in her friend group, her neighborhood, her relationship with her best friend, that's maybe turning a little bit into something more than friends, and then, within herself as she's approaching sophomore year. So I'm going to do a super quick reading. I literally never read any of my work out loud before. So if I sound crazy as if I didn't write this book, I promise I actually did. I'm just nervous, but here we go. Okay. So this is just in the first chapter when Rhea sees a billboard advertising her neighborhood as like the up and coming hotspot in Los Angeles. We've had bullshit billboards like this popping over all over South LA for the past couple of years. So normally I wouldn't have even noticed, but something about this particular one caught my eye. All the people in the ads are white. Well, at least they were until a minute ago. I used a brown Sharpie to fill in one last face. The guys hopped the fence to join me on the forbidden side. Malachi with his long legs does so much easier than Zeke, who sort of half scrambles, half falls his way over. The hood of the train stop structure casts a thin strip of fetal shade covering only half the metal bench, which by now has already absorbed hours worth of summer heat, so it's way too hot to sit on. But that doesn't stop Zeke from trying, twice. Rhea, Zeke complains to me after burning his ass once again. He rubs the seat of his jeans. Can you just let this go? No. As a Black girl, I know how this shit works. We're either hypervisible or invisible. I'm not going to pretend that I personally don't fall into the second category, but I don't need a goddamn billboard rubbing it in my face, let alone erasing the entire hood into obscurity along with me. My hand cramps as I accidentally color outside the line. I'm too young and too cute to get a rap for breaking and entering, Zeke complains. On the other side of the fence, a white 20-something woman with a cat on a bedazzled leash crosses the street to avoid walking past us. She clutches her phone all dramatic, the panic button locked and loaded as if we've been lurking here waiting to mug her. She avoids my eye contact as I stare down. Apparently, we don't look very young to her. I ignore Zeke and keep coloring. He groans and grabs a cluster of neon yellow caution tape from the floor, walking over to Malachi. Even while leaning against the fence, Malachi towers over Zeke, so Zeke has to rise up on his toes to wrap the do not enter tape around Malachi's neck. He arranges the makeshift bow and smiles. You look fabulous. Zeke, Malachi, and I have been best friends ever since Pampers. Our mom became tight when they'd volunteer at our daycare together. As we got older, that turned into waiting for us at the bus stop after school, which was always late because we'd mess with the driver so much that we'd have to pull over and yell at us to stay in our seats. So our moms had plenty of time to gossip about the other parents. Eventually, the three of us became accustomed to impromptu playdates on the patch of grass at the street corner, while our moms kept raising their jealous nails at us, telling us to chill out for 5 more minutes. And let me tell you, when Black and Latina moms get into full-on chisme mode, you know for damn sure they're not just going to be 5 minutes. So Zeke, Malachi, and I leaned into our crew. We gradually transitioned from school friends to bus friends to friends' friends. So thank you guys. That's my book about the 3 friends, and there goes the neighborhood. Thanks.
Thanks, Jade. That was great. And our final presenter today will be Leah Johnson, author of Ellie Engle Saves Herself. Bring us home, Leah.
Hey, everybody. I am Leah Johnson. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And you may have read one of my YA novels, You Should See Me in a Crown, or Rise to the Sun, or seen my face on so many virtual events over the course of 2020 and 2021. But what you may not know about me yet is that I believe in magic. I really do. I believe that getting the perfect crushed ice cube out of the fridge, and I mean when you just put your cup into the fridge and it just starts trickling, that's magic. That's magic, baby. I believe that being able to see the stars at night when enough lights are turned out is a type of magic. And I believe that group chats filled with friends who will listen to your strange, sort of crazy ideas about a middle grade novel about baby gay necromancers who love comic books are also a type of magic. And that everyday magic is weaved into the fabric of Ellie Engle Saves Herself. This book came about in a time when I really needed to believe that it was possible for Black girls to be heroes who didn't have to save the world, who didn't have to sacrifice themselves to somehow salvage democracy. I just wanted a Black girl who got a chance to be snarky and funny and geeky, and also maybe bring things back to life with her touch. I'm really, really excited about sharing this book with you all. And I'm also really grateful that I even got the chance to write it. I thought I was going to be writing love stories and meet cutes for the duration of my career until Ellie came and knocked on my laptop and said, girl, Not today, honey. So I'm gonna read an excerpt from the book. I don't have any slides, so you just have to look at me in my brand new overalls, okay, for the next 3 minutes or so. This excerpt comes from a chapter where Ellie realizes that she is after a, thank you, Dina. You all can't see it, but Dina left me a comment and said I'm looking good in my overalls, and you know what? That's why I love you, Dina. This is an excerpt from the book that talks about Ellie after a strange earthquake in her small Indiana town. If you've ever been to the Midwest, you know it's all flatlands, no tectonic plates. So where are we getting earthquakes from? I don't know, maybe it's supernatural. And she realizes that something has shifted. A fish funeral is a lot like a normal funeral, except people wear a lot less black. I mean, I'm wearing a pretty regular red Captain Marvel t-shirt and a pair of old ratty jeans with holes in the knees. I think Bert the betta fish would want things casual. He was laid back like that. I scooped Bert the betta fish out of his bowl and into a towel. I walked to the bathroom to give him his last rites before sending him off to fishy heaven. I imagine it'll be something like Finding Nemo. I'll flush him and he'll find his way to a resting place somewhere beautiful, like Wallaby Way, Sydney. I kneel in front of the toilet and try to come up with something to say. I think of all the days I sat at the computer doing homework with no one but Bert the betta fish to keep me company. With mom at work and my best friend at practice and my dad long gone, Bert the betta fish with his floppy little tail swishing back and forth like it was the simplest thing in the world. Like I was perfect company, just me and my math homework and my silence. And I know it's stupid, but then I get all emotional. He was just a little fish, but he was my fish. He was mine to take care of and mine to love, and now he's gone. I wonder if my dad even remembers that he gave him to me. Probably not. I haven't talked to him in a long time. I'm sorry, buddy, I say, swallowing around the lump in my throat, because I have nothing else to offer. I think of one of the prayers Poppy used to make me recite, but change it a little to fit the occasion a little better. God in heaven, hear my prayer, keep Bert the betta fish in thy loving care. I forget the rest pretty quickly. So instead of a prayer, I recite memories. Like the time I tried to sneak him into school for show and tell, but the water from his bowl just ended up splashing all over the inside of my backpack and I got caught before I even made it to the car. Or the time I was almost convinced that he could understand me because he kept glugging at the perfect points in the story I was telling him. And all those nights, it was just the two of us, Bert the betta fish in his tiny quiet home and me and mine in front of the TV waiting for mom or Poppy to get back home. I tell myself not to cry, even though the back of my eyes start to prickle. I tell myself he's just a fish, but as I tilt the towel towards the toilet bowl and his little scales shine in the light, I know that's a lie. He's not just a fish. He's my friend. He's family, and I don't want to lose him. I wipe my nose with the back of my free hand and say, see you on the other side, buddy. I wish I could smooth my fingers over his fur like I would if he was a cat or a dog, but since I can't, I run a finger over his scales one last time and thunderbolts of Jove, I shout. In one of those old comics, Wonder Woman yells thunderbolts of Jove whenever she gets shocked or runs into a battle. And I'm not sure who Jove is or why she's calling for its thunder, but it feels like a fitting moment for something like this. I fumble the towel with Bert the betta fish flopping on it and scramble across the floor until my back hits the wall. I can hear Bert the betta fish land in the water with a little splash and shut my eyes tight and shake my head. There's no way. There's just no way. It's impossible. I try to take a few deep breaths before opening my eyes. Bert the betta fish was most certainly dead as a doornail. And even if he wasn't dead when he was floating at the top of that bowl, the amount of time he was outside of the water and on top of that towel would have been enough to do it. I crawl forward and my heart feels like it stops beating in my chest. Maybe I'm losing it. Maybe I'm a supervillain. Plenty of their origin stories begin with a slow slide into insanity, like Harley Quinn. That's it. That's it. I'm like Harley Quinn. I peek over the edge of the toilet seat and gasp. There's Bert the betta fish just swimming around back and forth, like this isn't the most massive, colossal, monumental thing that's ever happened in the history of humanity. The random earthquake, the plant in the Ortega's bathroom, the ability to hear things from far away. There's no explaining this away. My fish was dead 2 minutes ago, and I just brought him back to life. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, Leah, and thank you to all of our author presenters. So good across the board. If you're in the audience, stick around because with the few minutes we have left, the Disney team is going to lead us in a quick game of trivia.
Thanks, Ronnie. I'm going to share my screen here. I don't know how familiar some of you are with Kahoot, but all you have to do to join us in this trivia is to go to kahoot.it on your phone, on your laptop. I'll give you a minute. Type in that game pin, and then it'll give you an opportunity to put in your name or a nickname. So once we've got some people joining, we'll go ahead and do the trivia. If you're not familiar with Kahoot, again, it's going to be multiple choice trivia questions about our authors and their books. And we will have some prizes for the winners. We'll have a first place, second place, third place. Our third place winner will get to choose one of our authors' books from the presentation, and we'll send it to you. Our second place winner will get to choose 2 books. And our first place winner will get a set of all of our authors' books from this amazing webinar. And I see we've got lots of people joining. We're going to give them just a little bit more time. Make sure I can see everything. All right, we got 52 players so far, 53. Looks like we might be slowing down. Oh, a few more. All right. All right. Let's see. I don't want to leave anybody behind, but I know what I'm too much. All right, we're at 60. We're going to go ahead. We're going to get started. Those of you who are still signing in, I think you'll still be able to play, but here we go. I turned off the music that goes with Kahoot because nobody really wants to listen to it. Authors, if you want to jump in and comment on your questions, let me know. So Stacey started submitting her work to publishers when she was how old? Was she 10? Was she 20? Was she 30? Was she 40? I see everybody's answering. One second left. All right, the answer is 10. Let's see how we're doing here. All right, looks like Kim is up there at the top with Saturn and Ashley right behind. Next question. Which mythological monster has Zeus and the Olympians not beaten yet? Is it the Minotaur? Is it the Hydra? Is it Medusa? Is it Cerberus? Crispin, how do I pronounce that?
It's Cerberus.
Cerberus. Okay, good. All right, 5 seconds left. All right, the correct answer was Medusa. All right, let's see how we're doing. Oh, Kim knocked down to 3rd place. Dana has taken the lead. Next up, which of the following is not one of Gretchen's previous jobs? Gretchen has had quite a few jobs. Opera singer, cartoon voiceover artist, circus performer, Academy Awards ceremony seat filler. Which has she not done? 5 seconds left. Looks like just about everybody's answered. All right, let's see what the answer is. Correct answer is Academy Awards ceremony seat filler. We're gonna have to get you that invite soon, Gretchen.
I know, right? Like, I got to fill out my resume.
All right, overall Stan has jumped into the lead with Alex and Allie K right behind. Next up, when did Mark and Rick meet in person for the first time? Was it 2 years ago? Was it in middle school? Was it a month ago? Or was it 10 years ago? Let's see, all right, we've got almost all our answers in. 3 seconds left. That's right, it was a month ago. They did everything over Zoom and email and everything before until about a month ago. Is that right, Mark?
I wish it was in middle school. That would have been great.
That would have been fun, right? All right, let's see how we're doing. Oh, Alex is back in the lead. All right, next up. In the original draft of There Goes the Neighborhood, Jade included lyrics from a famous West Coast rapper. Whose song did she pull from? Was it Snoop Dogg? Was it Tupac, Kendrick Lamar, or Tyler, the Creator? All right, let's see. Only a few seconds left. Oh, this one's stumping people. We have fewer answers. Okay, let's see. 1 second. There we go, it was Tupac. All right, let's see how we're doing. Overall, Stan has a streak, 4 answers in a row. Well done. All right, last question. Ellie wakes up to her powers after who was paying attention? Vacation, snowstorm, earthquake, bad cold. That's right, an earthquake. All right, let's see who our winners are. So in 3rd place, Allie K. All right, congratulations, Allie. Alex is in 2nd place. And number 1, overall, Stan. All right. Now, if you guys, I don't have your full names here, if you could please put in the Q&A what your nickname was and what your real name is, and then we'll get your information and we will contact you about your prize. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Dina. And another big thank you to our authors, Leah, Jade, Gretchen, Mark, Crispin, and Stacey, as well as the rest of Team Disney. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's video recording, presentation slides, title list, and a certificate of completion. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Booklist Reader, our new book browsing guide offering reading recommendations to patrons of all ages, is now available in print. Go to booklistonline.com to find out how you can order print copies for distribution at your library. Already subscribed? Booklist subscribers can share issues digitally for free. Visit our website for more details and to see examples of how libraries are sharing Booklist Reader with their patrons. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. One more huge thank you to our authors and to our sponsor, Disney Publishing. This concludes today's webinar.